Alright, so I don't want y'all to see my feet. We have the quadratic formula today. So here are some notes. Don't remember what our quadratic equation looks like. It creates a parabola, which is a U-shaped graph. We know the standard form of a quadratic equation, f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And we also know what solutions, roots, zeros, and x-intercepts mean. All four of those words are synonymous. And these values are when the line crosses the x-axis and the value of y equals 0. That part is very important for us because when we're solving, we want to know that our y value equals 0 and what are the x values when that happens. Okay? So we've been solving quadratics in multiple ways. You all solve quadratics using the square root method. We solved quadratics the other day using the completing the square. We solved quadratics using factoring. And there's one more strategy that can be used to solve quadratics, and that is the quadratic formula. I'm just practicing. This formula can work for any equation. In every equation. However, some of the other methods that we've learned might not always work. So it's in your best bet to have multiple tools in your toolbox so that you can use them at when you need to. So the last one we're going to learn is the quadratic formula. Again, you can use this formula with any quadratic if you're solving for it. Just the same with completing the square. You can use that strategy. And the quadratic formula states, and it's right here, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to give you this really cool and cheesy song to help you remember it and never forget it. So it's x equals, and I'm just stop there. X equals, we are solving for x. That is like your big key factor. If I'm solving for a solution, I'm solving for x, okay? When it crosses the x-axis. X equals negative b. This symbol means plus or minus. We've seen this before when it comes to square roots. B squared minus 4ac all over, or say divided by 2a. Divided by 2a, okay? Now here's the cheesy, corny song. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Do y'all know where that song comes from? You sure? I don't know either. But that is the tune that we use to memorize the quadratic formula. Okay? As you see these letters, B, A, C, A, those variables are going to come from the numbers that are represented in our quadratic equation when it's given to us, okay? So we're going to be substituting in this formula, okay? Now, in this quadratic formula, right, we're looking for solutions. We know that our parabola can cross the graph twice. It can cross the x-axis one time, or it cannot cross the x-axis at all. So this formula is telling us find out how many solutions does this equation actually have. Does it have one solution, two solutions, or no solutions? So a quick way for us to figure that out before we even dive into this quadratic formula and maybe mess it up because we forgot the negative or the minus, we're going to talk about this thing called the discriminant. I'll say that word one more time. Discriminant. Okay? You don't necessarily have to remember that word. However, it's, again, another tool in your toolbox for you to know. So the discriminant helps us determine the number of solutions the equation has, okay? So that is b squared minus 4ac, okay? That part is hidden underneath the square root in our quadratic formula. Because we're taking the square root, that's why the plus or minus is there, because we'll have the positive and the negative version of that answer, because when we square it, we get the same value. So if my discriminant is greater than 0, I'm going to have one solution. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to have two solutions. If my discriminant value equals to 0, there's only going to be one solution. And if our discriminant is less than 0, there will be no real solutions. That means it's going to be a negative number. And we cannot take the square root of a negative number. That might come up in an example. You'll see that. You'll learn more about why we can't take square roots of negative numbers and why we use the word real in Algebra 2. So these are great tools to keep into your toolbox for those upcoming years. Okay? So now that we have some background knowledge on quadratic formula, the discriminant of how to get these solutions, now we're going to implement the quadratic formula in solving for solutions of an equation. Let go.